Well, thanks for jumping on. It's to the SuperLife podcast here. This is an interesting one because you and I have had a little bit of a journey as of the last time you were on, and obviously your film, Let Them Be Naked, and which I participated a little bit. You took on as directing, producing, doing everything possible. You got it funded. You got it completed in a record time. You got it in a ton of festivals. We're trying to get distribution, and that continues. It's being received in the festivals, and but you've had this glimpse beyond the veil, in a sense, of being in a new industry at the same time fighting an old one that you've been fighting for a long time. So I'd love to hear what kind of is going on for you now that, the film is pretty much, you're in the last kind of a final edit before we kind of try to get it on a platform. Mm-hmm. And you've been running around like a madman, right? Trying to get the message out about clothing and clean clothing and non-toxic and all of the elements now that people are aware of, or hopefully, from the dyes to the plasticizers to the PFAS to the all of it. And the thing about you is you're well before your time, right? You were doing this because you knew it was the right thing to do for 25 years. So I'm just curious, just as a friend and as a fan of you jumping into this for the first time in a different way, through film, through using your voice in a different way, where are you at now?
Yeah, I mean, kind of compared to cliff jumping, you just run and jump, and then, you land. Yeah. And then it's a good thing you didn't check out what was underneath before you jumped. You probably wouldn't have jumped. So I feel a little war-torn.
Yeah.
I probably look older now, It's
the
not
stress,
Yeah, the stress factor, because everyone kept saying, it's marathons. I'm like, I don't like marathons. I like sprinting.
Right.
So I did it the way I did fashion, which I did download energy, and then I create a collection and I have a theme, and I want to get everyone on board. And so I was just thinking oh, wow, I'm doing something for the world, for the good. I want to save people. I want to help, I want to talk to them about their health and give them options. And I thought, wow, everyone's going to jump on board. Everyone's going to want to be a part of this.
Right.
And no. That wasn't what I've discovered, and that's not a deterrent. I think you should follow, obviously, your gut, and thank you for being my coach, mentor, and sidekick, man. I mean, without your muscle, I think I would have probably have succumbed a couple of times. But where we are at, it's interesting because I'm literally leaving for Paris tomorrow for the Change Now conference, which all the CEOs, all these companies come, and I'll just speak frankly. When I see these guys on stage talking about sustainability and they're wearing synthetic clothing, I'm just like, my heart just drops. I'm like, that's just, they're not living it. Right. They're not breathing it. They're talking some game because they're getting paid to do it, or they're trying to raise money for something. And it's just, I'm doing this all heart. There's no money in this for me. I've lost money. Since we last talked, I miscalculated. I didn't realize I would keep doing these, which is great. I keep been asked to do these festivals, these events, to spread the word, this impact, but I ran out of budget for this impact. So now my farm is up. I've took a loan out against my farm to continue this journey because I can't let this go. I can't let it just end up on a library at Amazon and people find it later down the road. So all my director buddies are like, oh, don't worry, Jeff, 4 or 5 years, 6 years from now, you're going to have, people are going to discover it, and then you'll make your money back. Okay, guys, it's not about making my money back. It's about right now, what can we do? How can we, because if we don't take this narrative now, there's going to be all the companies. They hire amazing PR people, and they're great at strategy. They're going to come in, swift in, steal the narrative, make sustainability and all the toxicity we're talking about and make it and spin it like they did with Victoria's Secret's bra and said it's about the underwire. So everyone I talked to, oh yeah, I heard about the underwire. Like, wait, you didn't hear about the fabrics and what's in the fabrics? What?
Yeah, they made it into the Victoria's Secret thing. Maybe just tell people what that study was, and that how they spun it into wasn't about what was in the fabric, but about the underwire that's miraculously caused the problem.
Yeah, it was basically as a joint action lawsuit. 600 women roughly came together and filed a lawsuit, which is in the doc. We had the main lady who filed, and so the PR spun it. It was about the fabric and the additives creating rashes on women. You had thousands of women in MedHelp talk about how they're breaking out. They get lumps. Some of them had breast cancer, etc. And so they were able to throw it out of court because they basically said, well, not everyone had the same symptoms. Right. So it doesn't work with class action lawsuit. If you know law, that doesn't work. You got to have the same symptoms. So the original woman who we interviewed in the doc didn't want to continue. She was burnt. Her sister just passed away from breast cancer. She was done. She didn't have the capacity to go further. So that got disbanded. So how they spun it after the fact, and if you go on and try to find the verdict of that lawsuit, you cannot find it. The only reason we know is because we interviewed her. And they basically talked about, well, it could have been formaldehyde, but formaldehyde is found in all garments. It's found in our bodies as natural. So that's one thing how they spun it. The second thing was that he simply said, oh, it's underwire. It's the metal underwire, which metal is a conduit of, electricity. It can create radiation, blah, 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 from films. You know more about that than most. So they basically kind of, it's, I don't know what the right word is, but they were able to kind of get people on that thinking versus the material. Right. Why? Because you can easily replace underwire, construction of a bra, replace it with plastic. Right. Super easy. It doesn't change their supply chains, doesn't change their COG, their cost of good. Great. They're continuing in business, and they're still putting those cheap ingredients, those cheap fabrics on breast, causing all sorts of problems.
Right. Which is, it's petroleum and plastics and phthalates and carcinogenic dyes and all of that stuff. So, but then again, they just play the game and they spin it. So it's you've been on a hell of a journey, and you feel like done something that very few people do. Is like you took on the film. I guess take me through that journey of the film. Like, take me through, because it sounds like a little bit of like, which you kind of have to have. I've had it in every adventure that was successful for me, a little bit of a delusion to do it, right? Because you actually don't know. You don't know what it's going to take, right? So you don't have the understanding. So it's a little bit of like, I'm going to do it. And then to now, like, I guess tell people, just set it up. Like, if people are hearing this for the first time, what's the doc? Sure. Why do it? And then let's go back into the journey.
Okay. Yeah, no. So obviously I've been doing sustainable fashion design for 22 plus years, and I learned very quickly the chemical, the makeups of things and how it affects you. And I was like, wow, I got to do something. So I've been on that journey, but I've been doing catwalk shows. I did a kids collection and sold in Nordstrom. I thought that would change the world. No, it didn't. I figured out quickly parents didn't care about them, they care about the kids. So collection did great, but it was too early. This is 2006, 2008. Then I started as like, okay, 2008 happened, retail collapsed. I was like, okay, I was in 75 stores, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to jump ship and do couture so I can get on red carpet and get out in the public eye. And I got like Giselle, who's a beautiful friend of mine, who wore this indigo dyed hemp silk gown to an event we had in New York. And the next day the headlines read, Giselle, where's hemp? I'm like, okay, cool, this connects. People were like resonating, like, hemp doesn't look like a potato sack. It looks beautiful, and she makes everything look beautiful, and she is. But I I was like, okay, let me do this. So I started working red carpet stuff, showing at London Fashion Week, Paris Fashion Week, hoping the press would generate and it would drive people like, this is made out of this dye. And what I realized, they were more or less interested in the design, my story as a designer, not the fabrics, not the dyes. Right. And I could not get enough voice in that. And I was, the biggest show I did was Shanghai Fashion Week, closing it. Thousands of people, all the celebs. But what was the conversation? It was about the design and me dressing Taylor Swift back in the day. It wasn't about what this does to the human body. So I was like, okay, I got to figure out a different solution. And then my mom her breast cancer came back and she passed away. And I'll never forget this moment. And this was the turning point for me. Was simply I was asked to do a TED Talks. I was like, okay, cool. You know, people don't know this, but it was like TED Talks was new. And I was like, okay, that could change the world. Right. I'm like, yes.
That's a good subject. Yeah, let's get this guy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's new. Nobody's heard about it. Okay, cool. He looks the part. Let's get him in. So I went to Glasgow, and I'll never forget this moment because my mom was sick, but she didn't tell me she was dying. She told my dad, don't tell him because he won't go. And he needs to go and do this because this is his journey. And so I went to Glasgow unknowingly that she was on her deathbed. And obviously when I came back, I did the TED Talks, came back, she was in a coma. I wasn't able to say goodbye. And she self-sacrificed. I mean, she always supported me on my endeavor. She was amazing support system for me. So that's why I decided to do the film and I realized quickly that's the medium that connects and lives beyond us. And so, you know me, we're friends. I said, okay, I got to do this. I got to get this out. So I immediately came up with the concept, let them be naked. It's like, it's better to be nude than dressed in synthetics. And then my producers, as you know them, they're like, that's a working title, right? I'm like, no, that's it. I see the vision. This is it. Because that connects. That makes sense. We should all strip away, be naked and nude, unless we have a better option. And it's interesting to sit in front of you today because you're wearing everything that is now naturally dyed and made of natural fibers. And that, to me, is like, wow, that's great. Yeah. So it's working. And so long story short, went to the concept, went to all my friends, and I went to the Camerons, James and Susie Cameron, and Susie and I have been friends for a while. She's been in the same space. I said, now's the time. We got to do this. Would you support me? And, and before that, I went to my producers who did a short on me years ago, State of Tennessee funded it, and it was called Remaster It, and we won an Emmy on it. So I went to them first. I said, listen, I have no idea what I'm doing. You guys know me now. I trust you, and let's do a handshake deal. Let's get this baby going. So they came out. We did a quick shoot, did a little teaser, and I sent it to Susie and to you and other people. And you and Susie were the first ones to sign on board and support this. And, I'm always going to be grateful for that. So, so that's what started this journey. And, it's been a wild, wide open, whirlwind of journey. And yes, we shot in 3 months, did editing in 3 to 4 months as well. Basically within a year, capsule we start to finish because timing is vital in this subject matter because people start hearing about it and they start spinning it. And so I knew I had to get there first. And there's anti-docs going out that are going to try to counter what we're saying. And because it's such a huge industry, it's not only fabrications, textiles, and dyes. We're talking about the chemical industry that's been around since pre-war that, are based in Germany that funded Nazi Germany, essentially. There was a famine, and they created the first pesticide. And what they did, they learned how to change molecular structure, and they were able to make more chemistry and more chemicals that would create, cheap alternatives. And so they started applying that science down without checking to see what does this do to the human body. Of course. So as you know, they ran out of silk for the parachutes in the war. So therefore, they designed nylons by mimicry. But then the ladies after the war, they started using it in fashion because it was cheap. Right. So instead of silk leggings, they went to nylon leggings. And guess what? Those ladies had rashes. That's why we included in our film about we had a professor at Toronto and Allison who went back in history to look at all the health issues from these fabrics that's still in existence today. It was just more, things were smaller back then. So they were producing in London, producing in Paris, and they would have a ball, and they would literally, the workers that were making it across the street would come into the free hospital with all these issues.
Right. So they're seeing it right away, acutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Right now we don't see it because it's Vietnam, it's in Indonesia, it's in China. We don't see the workers getting sick from it. But as we say in the doc, it's a long-term health issue. So you and I, if we wore synthetics, we wouldn't have, these effects the next day or in a week or a month. It's years of bioaccumulation. And then we see it, but we won't be able to say pinpoint it, say it's this or that. And that's how these companies and these chemical companies are getting away with it. And now they're playing games of ppm levels, what's legal, what's not. And so what I've realized in this journey is that there is no regulation.
Right.
We have no regulation. I could say what this shirt is made of, make it up on a tag. Nobody's going to check it. So first, you don't know what's in it.
Right.
Okay. Secondly, even if I elicit what's in it, consumers don't know what's in synthetic dyes, and they use words like water-based dyes or natural dyes. And what the hell is that?
Doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't mean anything.
Not to mention just producing a T-shirt is thousands of chemicals just to get it to that white T-shirt that you want to buy for $5.99.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think people know about bleaching now because it's in toilet paper and whatever, and they understand why it's not good.
Right.
But they don't understand the other colorations and what it's, especially with denim. Everyone thinks, denim's cotton. It must be good for me. I'm like, no, synthetic indigo is only made in one place in China, and there's a reason for it because they can produce those ingredients that are super toxic and get away with it.
And dump it in the rivers, which they do.
In the Pearl River, right. Yeah, and that's been, Greenpeace has done studies on that. I mean, this isn't conspiracy theory. This has all been studied.
You can see it from the satellite.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, starch, by the way, in denim kills, sucks oxygen out of water, so everything dies. The petroleum-based dyes basically created like a tar pit. That's why in Ohio, the river caught on fire, which created the whole environmental movement in the 70s. When you saw that picture of boats on fire in the river, it's like, wow, that just shocked people. It's like, those are the toxic chemicals we're talking about. So I'm just trying to get it off the bodies, give enough awareness that the everyday consumer walks in the store and says, I'm not buying that if I don't know what's in it. That's what we're fighting for. We're fighting for that warning label, labeling system, ingredient list, and trying to get policy to put some brakes on this stuff. And so, but you probably want to re-guide me now, but but obviously it's a big thing, and going back to the regulatory, there is regulation. There's just no governance of it. So they do this funny little thing where they say, here's the regulation, go do it. And then they don't follow up with any of it. And then the companies don't do it. And they don't do the studies, just like almost in every industry. And we're finding out more and more of call it what you want in supplement industries, food industries, all of this stuff. It's just the Wild West, right? And so that's where there is not a magical regulatory body that has your best interest, which is why, and there's no one smoking gun, right? It's wearing that underwear and that bedding and that T-shirt and those shorts and that dress and those leggings every day, all day. And then the body chemistry, heat interactions, and then the death defying, not even defying, but then the stretchy clothes and the workout gear, and it's just crazy. Right? And there is a study, and I want you to point this out. There's studies now starting to show because as the body heats up, the pores open up, the skin starts to absorb more. So there's more and more studies coming out now showing that
the PFAS and the dyes and everything are getting into the body.
Yeah, the absorption rate. Yeah, this is interesting. So yesterday, this is funny. I was at the gym in Malibu, and I did it's called Chat GPT or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I asked it because it was I have a lot on my mind. I was like, so what's the skin absorption rate of?
You asked Chat GPT. Yeah.
So what's the skin absorption rate of toxins from clothing? And it basically spit out like a textbook answer of what any industrial person would say. It's like, oh, there's not enough research, not enough studies, da-da-da. I responded, you're wrong. And I listed out some studies.
You actually pulled the studies that show, And
by the way, it's in our book, The Let Them Be Naked, because I knew I needed to have this book before the doc released to have all the infrastructure
data,
references, et cetera, as you're well aware of. So I sent the studies and said, this is why you're wrong. It came back, apologized to me, said, you're right. I have the screenshot. I was like, all right, I like this. It goes, let me analyze again. Analyze again, spit out, go, yes, there are more recent studies that show the absorption rate of toxicity from clothing. And here they are.
Wow.
Even listed some I didn't know about. And I was like, all right.
So the intelligence of it,
it's got to be guided.
It's got to be guided. I do it all. By the way, I do it all the time.
Okay.
Because meaning that I know that it's not giving me everything.
Okay.
But it's almost like, weird to say, but it's almost like a sentient being. It's starting out knowing something because it's just aggregating what it's been told. So so if you call it out or at least provide it with a different direction, it's funny that's one of the coolest stories I've heard, though. Yeah. The fact that because it has no ego.
No.
So it just was like, oh, you're right. Yeah. Sorry. And then there
was no argument. No,
and then it probably opened up another, weird to say, but awareness or avenue to get more information. So what was the final thing that it kind of summarized?
It summarized that I was correct and that there are 37, even said there was more absorption rate because, we have this peer-reviewed study of 37%. If you have friction, if you're moving, running, sweating, there's now studies showing more absorption rate. And the first spit out was like, oh, we don't know if it penetrates the epidermis and da-da-da-da. And then it said, no, the toxins are the molecular structure, they're smaller now. It's been proven that it gets through the hair follicles. Right. It gave more specifics.
Which goes to the blood and then goes all everywhere.
Yeah, so it's like, to me, that's the first step. That's the misconception that everyone has. If I put this on, we're designed to be naked, never clothed. And we have some weird thing that we don't have a blockage. There's no filtration system. There's nothing to protect us. So if we get that in everybody's mind, that whatever you put on your skin, clothing,
it's going in.
It's going in. And we have proof of that, and that's the first step. So anyways, that was interesting. Yesterday it was like, wow, okay, we're making headway now.
So you're a new fan of Chat GPT.
I wouldn't say
right.
I wouldn't say that. It was kind of scary, but I was like, okay, at least I'm not crazy.
Right. I'm right. You walk away going, you gave me some bogus answer, but you actually rectified it.
But how many people stop the bogus?
But you had the material to push back.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And that's the goal.
That's the goal. I'm wondering if maybe I'll try that. I'll go back and I'll ask the same question and I'll say, no, you're wrong. And there is studies and just leave it general to show that the and see what it says.
Yeah.
See if it then does find other studies or if it just doubles down on the same answer.
I know, that'd be interesting. Hopefully it'll say, according to Jeff Garner yesterday.
That'd be funny.
That'd be great.
Cited in the bibliography.
Yeah, that'd be great.
As of yesterday. Yeah, so, you've gone through this arc. When you shot the film, it was countries. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just like interviewing a bunch of people. You went all over the freaking planet.
Yeah.
New Zealand, Indonesia, UK, on and on. So you really did this and obviously just to put a very poignant motivation here is your mom, right? Mm-hmm. And your mom and almost her her clairvoyance of understanding you and wanting you to do your thing, right? And so there's clearly a very powerful motivation behind this, right? And then when it's not received in the way that it should be, because it should, right? It's dangerous compounds, right? It's dangerous to the world, it's dangerous to our ecosystems, to the big ecosystems. It's dangerous, period. And then when you lay it, so you wrote it, you did the documentary in record time. You wrote a book in record time to be a chronicle of the research and to put everything in one place. And then for it to be, okay, the film festivals and the awards and everything else, and that's such a small population at the end of the day, and you want to make a world impact. And being in it so much, and you're exposing it, and then for it to be not be picked up right away, not be on every news station, not be viraled every second. It's what is that like when it's not, like when your heart is all over this thing, and then it's at least at this point, it hasn't been captured in the lexicon in the way that it should. Where are you at right now? What is that like? What's the path?
Well, I mean, the feelings is what gets you. It's a hard path, as you know. It's an impossible path. They say to finish a documentary is like a miracle, for one. The feelings are there. It's like, oh, it's gonna die with me, and then I wake up. I've just, for some reason, I'm built as a positive being, and and some little back history we have, interesting enough, similar pathways, is that my grandfather was the first chemist that Oppenheimer hired for the Manhattan Project in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. So I grew up with him making things and learning how to analyze and solve problems. And so that's the driving force in me. And I think, I'm pretty good at departmentalizing the emotional aspect of it. And so call it stubbornness, I don't know. But
yeah, your wife probably will validate that.
Yeah, don't talk about that. So yes, I'm all in this. And so in that journey, you stop listening to the little things. And the beauty of the film festival is now I get it. Again, I'm new to this. And I had film directors, friends of mine saying, I don't do film festivals. I'm like, well, why? And like, they didn't accept this or that or whatever. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm doing it. And so they told me, you might get in 2 or 3. And I put it out there. We got into 17. And we won 15 awards. What that tells me, and it's not about the awards, it's about, does it connect? Does it resonate? And you've been to, a few, 3 or 4 of them. And you heard the Q&As after, and it's the younger generation watching a doc. That's a miracle in itself. Yeah. And you're the one who kind of inspired me to make it like, build out the travel aspect, like, the down to earth. But I did that not unknowingly. I wanted to go with the flow, like, finding pieces of the puzzle. And, for example, we had guys making hemp in New Zealand. We also had wool in New Zealand. Those are great solutions for textiles. And then we had a guy who did a lot of research about the bras and breast cancer. And he was in a nudist, farm in Hawaii. Sydney is great. So I wanted to just open it up. I didn't want to pre-plan anything, so I got rid of my line producer because I figured out what that was. She just kept on me. I need this. I'm like, I'm going to flow. They don't flow in production. Right. So I did it differently. And in that, I think we captured heart. We captured what we're supposed to capture for this story. And we went into the problem, went into what could potentially be the solutions, and then you helped me kind of dial in what can people walk away, because we got to leave it with hope. But when you talk about like where we are now, like, we had immunologist that was paid not to talk to us. We had my TED Talks that I did in Glasgow, I told you about earlier, was buried. They
buried it. They didn't release it.
They didn't release it on their platform. They didn't know I knew the Turner family, and I reached out and said, hey, listen. So they released it to us, but not on their platform. I was asked to speak at Copenhagen Fashion Summit years ago, and then I was supposed to, and they nixed that. They said no. So I'm used to that kind of. I understand that. I understand there's sponsorship at stake. We're getting rejected by the streamers because of that very same issue. My hope is that people will get behind this because it affects every single person. It affects the distribution person that's saying no to this. It affects their family. Yeah. So I had, the lady at Apple, head of nonfiction, cry. She said, my 3-year-old is having allergic rash reactions to, I know, the chemicals in clothing.
Yeah.
But she tried to take it up the chain, and they said, we don't do cause-driven docs right now. Like, okay. So that was my first rejection. It wasn't a rejection, but it was a nice saying, like, we'd love to, but we don't want to take the risk. Totally respect. I get it. And then PBS. Last week, I got a letter. I don't think you know this. They wrote a letter saying, we have a conflict with our sponsors. Basically.
Come on.
No, I'm dead up serious. And I'm like, I don't know a lot about this, but that's a public broadcast. I thought and this is a public health issue.
Right.
Huh. That was kind of.
Even them are co-opted.
Yeah. And that's what you run into. And you can't blame people because everyone wants to stay in business, have jobs. I get it. But people deserve to know. Yeah. They need to know this information.
Yeah.
And because then they can make educated decisions. I'm not trying to put people out of business, but people have the right to choose.
Yeah.
And we don't have that choice now because it's all one-sided, that some magic genie said this is okay. It's sold in a retail store, so somebody checked it, and it should be okay to put in your body.
Right.
Why would they sell me poison?
Right.
It's like when you go buy pesticides at the farmer co-op, it says crossbones, like this is dangerous.
Yeah.
You can choose to buy it as a farmer, or you could get Neem's oil and do that. But at least you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all these things where it's, if you don't look, you don't know. And so much of our society is just like no fault of their own. Mm-hmm. They don't know, and they haven't spent 20 plus years in the space. And it's funny because just prior to you coming today, I interviewed some girls who created alternative mineral-based clean paints.
That's very cool.
And one thing I did not know was it is absolutely the largest contributor to microplastics in the ocean is paint. Because it's all vinyl petroleum paint.
Oh, yeah.
Off-gassing, all of that stuff. So they, too, are like, we're doing it differently. So it's not like some genie in the government or the regulatory body is like, we're going to get behind doing it right. It's this grassroots, I have to just do it because it's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. And it does take work. Why not work for something great? Mm-hmm. Why not work for change? Why not just keep going? Because it's always about balance. We don't want to crush ourselves in the process of doing it.
Right.
And, the challenge, even in the clothing, like you and I are sitting here, you make your own clothing, right?
You can tell.
And I, Industry of All Nations, because they're the best company I've seen, but there's not a lot of options. Like you make underwear and women's underwear, and you're under your prophetic brand.
And now socks.
Oh, amazing.
Look at these. These are alpaca and wool. I've been testing them. I've worn them a week straight in Europe. No smell.
I'm glad you brought me some. No, but that's amazing. But the point is, like, when people reach out to me because they know I'm in this space, they know I'm in this non-toxic world, and they and I go, yeah, you got to start with your underwear. Where do I go?
Yeah.
There's no other place to go but send. I've sent friends to you who are like, yeah, I'm definitely starting with changing my underwear because proximity and duration of private parts and sensitive areas and absorbability, all of that stuff. So my point though is options.
Yeah.
And we have mutual friends trying to infiltrate into big companies, trying to do the right thing, but like, oh my God, it just takes forever. So there is some movement, but for a normal group of people in the middle of the country, they don't have a freaking choice.
Yeah.
Right? There is literally in their entire town or towns, they literally have no store that's giving them a non-toxic solution to their clothing.
Yeah. Yeah. If you compare to the food industry, they used to grow their own crops right in the countrysides, and
that's how our country was built.
Yeah, and they used to make their own clothing. I mean, my grandmother, my mom, she made all of the clothing. Right. She knew exactly the fabric she was getting and the dyes, and that's where I learned it from.
Yeah,
we moved away from that in the countryside. So you're right. The dollar store or Walmart's not going to technically carry. They might carry organic cotton, but nothing that's not synthetically dyed, and so that is a need. But people always ask us, they're like, oh, it sounds elitist, expensive. And I'm like, it's not a true cost. Right. So when you talk about that hemp boxer I sell, it is $45. It has to be. The fabric, my organic cotton waistband that I make, I cut and sew it here in the U.S. I pay, $15, $20, sometimes $30 an hour for sewing. That's reality. Right. But we're so disconnected because we're still paying the cheap price points from the 70s.
Right.
And it's just like, no, that everything's gone up. Gas, fuel, housing. You buy coffee for $7 now.
Right.
You buy a T-shirt for that. But a T-shirt should be $40. It honestly should. And people get on to me with that. I'm like, it's a misconception. If we had regulation, which strangely enough right now, what's going on with the tariff stuff, that's why people don't understand this because you wouldn't know if you weren't a designer and producer. So I could take my underwear tomorrow to China. It would cost me $6 to cut and sew it. Right now, I pay $18. That's 3 times to cut and sew it in the U.S.
Right.
That's why people do it. Plus, they're buying synthetic fabric in China, made in China. So there's no shipping. They're paid $1 for that. I pay $10 a yard for my hemp. They're using a polyester band, again, 50 cents. Mine costs $3.50, $4. So that's why people don't understand. So with the tariffs, that's going to obviously when they ship it over, it's going to add a price. So it may not be worth it, and they may end up making more here. But that's not going to change the fabric. They even may use cheaper fabrics or cheaper trims to try to. So you have your cut and sew costs, and then you got your fabric costs.
Well, it's this whole thing of like there is a real cost to the cheap cost, and that's out of sight, out of mind for people, right? It's the slave laborers, it's the horrible conditions, it's the synthetic chemicals that are toxic, absolutely toxic for the workers, toxic for the environment, toxic for the waterways, toxic for the air, but yet out of sight, out of mind, and then that cost that's why it's subsidized in that way. So you're like, I'm spending, for $15, I get a packet of 3 shirts wrapped in plastic and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And so we're so used to and programmed and we don't know what those true costs are. Same with subsidies around dairy and beef and all of that other stuff. So those aren't true costs either.
Yeah.
Right. So you're fighting against people working their ass off in their life, and you got to pay for things, right? You need clothes to put on.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we're not given an option, and it's not incentivized for the real option, which is why you got to push back and create these films and create this information and continue to put it back so that we build an audience that's demands for change, that say, hey, instead of buying 15 t-shirts this year, I'm going to buy 2.
Yeah.
And I'm going to spend a little extra money because it's healthier for me, it's healthier for my children, all of that stuff. So how do you look towards the future? How do you perceive the future? How do you construct that in your mind of what you would like to see?
Sure. So part of the journey has been teaming up with Susie and Jim Cameron. They have a company called IO, and it's Susie's baby, but it's inside out. And so they're looking for these solutions. And I've always said hemp is a solution for fabric. If you think about it, the first denim jean was hemp. Levi Strauss used hemp and natural indigo. It was cheap back then. Right. They were using sacks out of hemp. If they were paying $10 a yard, they weren't going to make potato sacks out of hemp. Why? Because it was accessible. You could grow it anywhere, and they would red it on the ground. They wouldn't use machines to red it, so you had to buy an expensive machine to do the redding. But you also consumed less, right? So I think the answer, in my opinion, the answer would be, yes, hemp can eventually, if we have more people want this, demand it, it would be cheaper and or as the same price as a synthetic, if we can create that.
If you scale it.
If you
scale it and let the farmers grow the thing, and it's such a hardy crop.
You don't use pesticides. The water usage is minimal on any land. So the major cost is that redding machine if you're doing it at scale, because it rets it through the machine versus laying on the ground, let it rot, and then hand pulling it, basically. And that's labor intensive. So that they figured out that solution. So it could scale and could clothe us all. And that, to me, is the ultimate goal, is to create that marketplace and get people on that. Because the other thing you got to think about, it's better for your health, as you said, but hemp will last 10 times longer. This shirt, I've rode horses in it. There's not one hole in this. This is 10 years old. This is hemp. I can show you my clothing budget. I haven't bought new clothes in 20 years. I made all my stuff, but I guarantee it, my cost of fabric is going to be cheaper. Not you, but somebody going to H&M's is going to be. I'm going to spend less money.
Right.
So that argument doesn't make sense to me, because one hemp T-shirt is $40. You buy that package or get the 15, it's going to outlast all of them. Yeah. So
it's got 10, 15, 20 years.
So you'll actually do what we need to do environmentally, buy less, consume less, but it actually will be better for your pocketbook if you trust it. That farmer who has no money, I'd make you a hemp overall. It's going to be healthier for you, breathe better, and last. I mean, that should last your lifetime. A hemp overall with great hardware, brass hardware, not plastic, that would last.
Right. Yeah, and that's, I think, in the great work of Paul Hawken, when he created Drawdown, the book, when you actually look at doing the right thing without the implosion model is going against nature, is doing synthetics, is doing all this crazy stuff. But when you go with nature and you invest in that, it always actually profits infinitely more without the downside, right? That's the open cycle. Yeah. The open cycle is grow, support the land, support the soil, support the farmer, support the plant. The plant then supports you, it holds you, it covers you, and then it lasts for a long time. And and so that's the model, but we're all born into an implosion model. The capitalistic cap on this thing is we have cut that off, and just profits are the center point, right? And they still can be, right? They still actually can be, but we have to invest in it. So, what do you believe right now for people listening, not only for the film, to follow you and to follow the information, but what do you think are calls to action?
Yeah, I mean, I always tell everyone, just be conscious of what you're purchasing. People are doing it food-wise, right? Yeah. But it's really turn over that label, see what it's made of. Do background research. When they say it's made of X, is that clean? When they say this dye, is it clean? So my right now where we're at, I would buy undyed, because I don't believe anything on the market right now. Even if they say it's clean, it's not.
Right.
That's my professional opinion. And then, you want to buy natural fabrics that are breathable. So that's hemp, linen, cotton, silk, wool, alpaca. They're even doing some seaweed stuff. Mm-hmm. Everyone asks me about bamboo. I know on bamboo because of the processing. They use a lot of chemicals.
Gnarly processing.
It was never made to be a fabric, maybe as a wood floor, okay. But, and that's it. And it limits your buying. You can't, and that's the problem you're dealing with the addiction cycle. Everyone likes everything conveniently. When you buy on Amazon, you go to H&M and have that feel-good moment and buying. But this will give you more of a game. You have to be more strategic. Mm-hmm. You have to be almost like a detective. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of interesting for people. Mm-hmm. But every person I've gone to their closets after this film, I go in and they're scared to death. And we look at it, and literally 5 to 10% is natural fibers. My grandmother had 80% natural fibers. My mom probably had 50%. Mm-hmm. And that's where we are now. Yeah. And that shows you what we're up against.
Yeah. And that's the food for the skin, and that's not good food. That's toxic. So like we want to take the idea that in that study that you pointed out, where that stuff's coming in, we need to make that understanding that just, be careful of what you're putting in your mouth, but be careful of what you're putting on your skin, because that organ is definitely showing that it's showing up in a lot of different ways. And the dyes freak me out. The PFAS freaks me out. The phthalates freak me out. The formaldehyde freaks me out. It should freak out everybody because that's contributing to just, again, death by 1,000 cuts and long-term effect that, I was just talking to young women, and their friend cycle of people under 40 getting breast cancer and cancers is like scary.
Yeah.
Right? It's just a scary situation that we don't want to wait until, all of us are falling off the cliff.
Yeah. And again, that's why I pushed to get this out. I didn't want one other day to go by. That's why I'm fighting for the distribution, because a day does matter. Yeah. You don't realize it, but it does. And by the way, all the things you just listed, just so that your listeners know, those are known carcinogens. There's no question about it. Yeah. They are known for that to cause cancer. And how they say they regulate it is like they have a legal limit of ppms. So they say we're allowed 100 ppms of formaldehyde. And if you actually know science, you would know, and we say this in the doc, but a lot of people are questioning it. It's not about the level, the amount of ppms. It could 1 ppm could cause the cancerous cell to mutate, et cetera.
Dose is the poison. Yeah.
Dose is the poison.
Does it mean more?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So there needs to be 0 in there if it's carcinogenic, in my opinion, and I think most people will concur with me. Yeah. That's where we got to get to. Yeah. And until then, we need warning labels like a 65 label we have in California
Prop
say
65,
Prop 65 that says that this wood has cancer-causing chemicals in it. We need that on our clothing. Yeah.
Yeah, then it's a choice. Instead of like hiding it and not even putting it on the label and not understanding it. Yeah. So, dude, we will continue to fight to get distribution.
Thank you.
We're just at that, that place where we need to kind of get it to the powers that be, and let's see where we can get this thing on. It's going to find a platform. It's just a matter of how. Friends of mine with Christspiracy, like I told you, they had to create their own. There's like, we're not going to edit it at all, so we're going to create our own platform. Yeah. So at the end of the day, we can get it out. It's just a matter of where. Yeah. Right. So, where can people continue to learn, continue to follow you, continue to support what you're doing?
So I think I told you this, maybe not, but Mother's Day. Because I did this for my mom, we're going to give it away for free to moms. I mean, you don't have to be a mom, but we are giving away starting Mother's Day weekend.
To watch the film.
May 8th through Mother's Day, midnight.
Where can they stream it?
On letthembeenaked.com.
Got it.
So they go there, they just sign up with their email, and they get it for free. Because I don't want them to have to wait until we get a streamer to agree and put us on the platform, which I'm hoping for September for that. But which may be Amazon or whatnot. But we'll figure that out. But that's the next. That's where they can and then they'll have a download of that. And then when we're ready to launch in distribution, they can help spread the word.
Right.
And obviously they can get the book now. Everyone can get the book on Apple and Amazon, which has all the information they're ever going to need in this subject matter.
Yeah, it's not just you saying it. It's backed by all this. So maybe by the time people are listening to this, we have got it to the point where they're hearing this and they can go right to the website and start watching it.
Yeah, I mean,
for a period of time.
I hope the next podcast we're celebrating, you know, that it's out there and changing the world. But by the way, just a little hope. We have 4 policy fashion acts being presented and passed right now in Toronto, New York, LA, and London. So right at Christmas, we introduced an amendment to a bill that the Green Party was presenting with the addendum of toxicity in clothing. First of its kind ever. Amazing. That was a huge win for the impact of the dog because now people are paying attention. It's being introduced to a government body saying we have to watch this, regulate it, do something. Even the Speaker of the House I wonder what was in the starch collar shirt they has to wear with his button-up tie because if you get rashes. So it's now being presented. So LA's in mid-May, they're presenting in Sacramento. New York has one in Toronto. So that's hopeful because then people, I think, will realize, oh, this is a real thing.
It's a real thing.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, brother. Like, we'll keep going. What else? What else is there to do?
I know. I have nothing to lose.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, and I appreciate your hard work and your dedication. And
thanks, man.
And people have been impacted by the work you've already done. So just know that, myself included.
Talking about the hem boxers.
Yeah, all of it.
I'm kidding.
Thanks, man.
No, thanks, Darin, man. It's couldn't do without you, honestly. So I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Yeah.